Alright, after a brief Thanksgiving break, time to finish filming this New Year's Eve review of 4 Rooms. And before I start, I just want to go back and correct a mistake I made when I did the first part. I said that this movie came out in 1994, and I'm honestly kind of embarrassed because this is the first time I've ever made a mistake like this. Turns out the movie came out in 1995, so oops on my part, I guess, and not a big deal, just I've never made a mistake like that, and I hate the fact that it happened. Anyway, after reviewing the first half of 4 Rooms and taking the needed break after doing so, I'm ready to talk about the good segments. The third segment of 4 Rooms is called The Misbehavers, written and directed by Robert Rodriguez, one of the coolest do-it-yourself filmmakers that is still working, and Robert Rodriguez started making his segment for 4 Rooms exactly 1 week after filming wrapped on Desperado. He even got Antonio Banderas to come with him to this very abrupt new project, and Antonio Banderas, one of the few critic quotes you'll find on this DVD is from Roger Ebert saying, "Antonio Banderas is hilarious." And I don't know if Roger Ebert liked the majority of 4 Rooms, but I get the feeling this is one of those instances where a critic's quote is taken out of context, because there are a lot of bad movies that will have a good actor in them, and the critic will praise that one actor while saying that the rest of the film sucks, and not saying the entirety of 4 Rooms sucks, just saying I'm a little suspicious of this quote here. And Antonio Banderas is not the star of The Misbehavers, but he does add a lot to it, adds a lot of charm. He is very sexy in this. He just brings that natural Hispanic charm, and it's really fun to see him, and he looks great. Being right after he made Desperado, he still has long hair, which is tied back in a ponytail that I could only wish to get as smooth. And he has this pencil-thin mustache, and he's one of the few people that can really pull that type of mustache off. And the plot is about Banderas playing a man. That's what he's billed as. There's no name for his character. And his wife, played by Tamlyn Tomita. I do not know her from anything else. She looks like your average, pretty Asian or Hispanic actress. I cannot tell what her ethnicity is. And this couple appear to be suave and rich, and they have 2 children. A daughter named Sarah, played by Lena McKissack. M, lowercase c, uppercase K, Issack. And a son named Juancho. At this point, it's no secret, I suck at pronouncing names. Played by Danny Verduzco, Verduzco. And the plot is, the man and wife are going to a New Year's Eve party, and they're bringing their kids, and they're all suited up, even the children, and the kids are kind of bratty. But when you see the way Banderas treats them, and even the way he kind of talks to his wife, you think, wouldn't you? But even then, they're still extremely bratty in a way that is just not acceptable if this was to be real life. And the wife is not looking forward to the party, primarily because the kids are going. And Banderas decides, why don't we just leave them here? And so they leave, and the kids almost right away start to get up to no good. And then Banderas suddenly appears saying, "What did I say?" And the reason it's called The Misbehavers is because Banderas keeps pointing at them saying, don't misbehave. And realizing that they can't just leave them alone, because when they barged right in, the son was in the process of opening the suite window, possibly several stories up. And Banderas says at one point he does not trust babysitters, thinking that babysitter I do not know from the book, probably some fucked up pedophile. And guess who should show up just in time to be the first choice to watch the kids? Ted. And Ted, at this point, after all the events that have happened in the last two stories, he's just not interested in watching two bratty kids. But Banderas is able to bribe him into doing it by offering him $500 at first. And trying to be slick and cool. It's debatable whether or not his character is a criminal. He's very intimidating, definitely. Like, the stares Banderas gives as this character are legitimately unnerving. The kind of stare you never want to get from a parent. And after giving Ted $300, Ted's like, "You said $5." And Banderas tries to intimidate Ted out of asking for $5. And Ted, showing a bit of a ballsiness that was never present in the last two segments. Once again showing how having 4 different writers write the same character can lead to some inconsistency. He challenges Banderas, saying, "Looking after your kids is a pain in the ass I don't need." And Banderas is like, "Are you calling my kids a pain in the ass?" "Not the kids, just the situation." And after a little bullshitting, Banderas giving him a big glare is like, "No, you were right the first time. They are a pain in the ass. Alright, tough guy, you win. 500. It's funny, and that's what really separates it from the first two. Rodriguez's story has a lot of charm and even a little heart to it. Like, not a sweet story, but you can tell his heart is in the right place when writing this goofy story. And so Banderas and the wife leave, and we see Ted, who has been pushed around throughout the first half of the film. And at this point, Ted is still a very annoying, unlikable character. And as I said, Tim Roth's acting, for the most part, is just terrible. But now that he's in the hands of a competent director, he doesn't suck as much. He's still over the top, and it really gets on your nerves. But the situations in this story are just better handled and better executed, to the point where it kind of fits. Like, his behavior flows a little better, especially towards the end. And the whole story with Ted is now that he's in a position where he can be a little in charge of the kids, we see that Ted can be a pretty nasty person, saying, "Don't break the rules and I won't break your necks." The kids aren't really intimidated by him because, well, he is being a nasty little ass. He's not their father. And the little girl, Sarah, she really is the main character of the Misbehavers. And Lana, I can't pronounce her last name, but for a child actress, she is extremely talented. She has a lot of she emotes a lot of authority that you just wouldn't expect from a kid who looks like she's 6, I think, or 7. She just puts Ted in his place, and this is another story where no one is really likable. And normally I hate this type of comedy, but because just about every character in this segment suffers in some way, I think maybe that makes it a bit more enjoyable. Like, there's always those characters who are assholes that you can't stand, kind of like Ted. And then there are the characters who are assholes who you just like seeing get their comeuppance. And this is kind of one of those stories. Rodriguez's story, while it is good, it's still got a few questionable faults. Like, just some of the humor is pretty juvenile, and like the kids are alone and they take off their shoes and they keep giving each other shit, saying, "Your feet stink." And then we see the son suck his toes. They just put it right in his mouth. And yes, I know little kids do that, but being a germaphobe, it just made me go, ugh. I could really have done without that. But all the talk about something stinking really pays off in the end. Like, it stays there, and at the end we find out what is causing all the smells. They keep pestering Ted, and he keeps just not wanting to deal with them, saying, "Don't call me unless it's absolutely necessary." And they tell him that that's not what their father said, and the exchange between the characters is pretty good. Lana and Tim Roth, they have some good back and forth chemistry, and the sense of uneasiness that carries throughout this segment is extremely well done. Rodriguez, most of his time, is a action film director, and so he knows how to really put you on edge a little, but we don't usually get to see him do it through a non-action scenario, and this is pretty cool, extremely cool. And the two moments that really establish a sense of uneasiness is, first, a more comedic one, where the wife asks, "What makes you think we can trust him?" And then Banderas just slams into Tim Roth, squeezing his face like this, and holding his face like this. He says to the wife, "Tell me that's not a face you can trust." It's funny, but you're like, ew. And also, he takes Ted's name pin, tosses it to the kids, and tells them, "Anything you want, ask for Ted." And the daughter looks at Ted and, smiling, gives him a wink that normally would be cute, but the smile she gives, and just this was a really good child actress. The wink she gives is just unnerving, like the type that makes you just want to get away from this person as far as possible. So yeah, I really think this actress was extremely good for a kid. The son actor, Danny Verduzco, I hate pronouncing names. He's not terrible, but he's not great either. Like, he delivers his lines and has a little emotion, but he's pretty wooden. And I know he's a child actor, but I have a little tolerance for bad child acting, and while his acting wasn't going to win any awards, it's certainly better than the acting I've seen from a lot of shitty fucking child actors. Like that little girl in Johnson Family Vacation, the youngest kid of Cedric the Entertainer. Yes, I saw that movie. I know it's pretty mediocre and stereotypical, but that little girl was fucking atrocious. Just so annoying, you hope she gets the ice cream truck treatment from Assault on Precinct 13. And that boy from Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the kid who gets sucked into the movie, those two really come to mind as terrible child actors. And one of the many misbehavings of the Misbehavers is they're flipping through TV and they come across the porno channel. And for some reason it's not blocked, but the son really gets into watching it, going, "Hey, TNA!" And the sister is like, "You're not supposed to watch that. Turn it off." And he just ignores her, and she throws her shoe and she hits him. Like, the violence in this, while it is slapsticky, it really can really feel those hits she's giving him. And the porno they're watching involves some woman in a cheetah bikini just dancing. And fun fact, that woman is Robert Rodriguez's regular girl buddy, Salma Hayek. And while going through the channel, some of the footage shown on the TV is from Robert Rodriguez's very first short film, Bedhead. And now I gotta get into the spoiler area, but before I do that, the Misbehavers is believed by many to be the inspiration for Robert Rodriguez's family films, the Spy Kids movies. Because these two kids that do quite a lot of stuff that you normally wouldn't see kids do, they are similar in a way, and there's a couple of scenes in the Misbehavers that are repeated in the Spy Kids movies. Particularly the "your feet stink" and a scene where Banderas is trying to comb his son's hair. And how does the Misbehavers end? The kids, really not being able to tolerate the stink in the room anymore, realize it's not either of them. So they move back the mattress, and this is a actually shocking scene. They find out that there is not kidding, they find that there is a dead woman under the bed. And it's really gross, rotting looking, and it's just, it's a huge shock, and every time they cut to this dead body, it really is a little stomach turning. And Sarah calls Ted, who has had enough of these fucking brats, and she's like, "There's a dead body up here! Get it out of here! Get up here! Take it out, or I'm telling my father! I swear to fucking God!" Yeah, we get to see a little kid swear. And then Ted, just seething with annoyance, goes, "Alright, I'm coming up, and if there's not a dead body up there, there's gonna be one!" And then as he's going up, he spots the dad and the mom coming home from their party, and the mom's passed out, being carried, and then Ted goes up to the room, desperate to make sure nothing's wrong, and then they show him the body, and Ted immediately barfs, just vomits. It's very gross. And all this and the whole segment pretty much has been building up to the final scene, which even if you don't think the story's that great, the very last scene in the story just makes it all the worthwhile. Ted grabs the phone and screams, "Police! It's an emergency!" Tim Roth's acting. "There's a dead fucking whore!" And Sarah just goes, "Don't call her that!" And he just screams, "There's a dead whore!" And she yells, "Don't call her that!" And before they found the body, she found a needle in the room, like possibly a drug needle. And she runs up to Ted, just stabs him in the leg. The character pretty much became a kindergarten version of an angry internet feminist, and after stabbing him, Ted just screams and jumps around going, "Owie, owie, owie!" Kind of like that. And the son, who doesn't seem to realize the situation, is lighting a cigarette, and because Ted had caught him smoking and literally smacked him in the face and knocked it on the floor, which is soaked in alcohol that the kids were drinking and they had spilled. And the cigarette mixed with the alcohol causes the room to set on fire. And Ted, to support himself, grabs the dead hooker, I guess, leg, and yanks the needle out and holds it like that. And the girl is holding up the alcohol bottle to hit Ted for, I guess, being sexist. And as they're all doing this, Banderas opens the door with his wife in his arm, and he sees the whole room on fire. Ted holding the dead hooker's leg, holding the needle in one hand. His daughter holding a bottle of alcohol. And he sees his son with a cigarette. And the son, who, by the way, only has one front tooth, which makes it a funny image, I guess, but also, once again, ew. He takes his cigarette out and throws behind him, causing the fire to escalate even more. And Banderas just stands there, and you can't tell if he's angry or if he's disappointed. It's a little hard to figure out what his face says. But he throws down his wife like a bag of laundry, and looking at them all, says to Ted, "Did they misbehave?" And everybody just stands there frozen as the room goes up in flames. Essentially, the whole thing kind of felt like it was a long joke building up to a very, very satisfying punchline. And it's one of the rare times I've really gotten into a situation type of comedy. Because normally this type of comedy would piss me off, but all the actors do good jobs. The setup for the whole final scene is handled perfectly. The execution works very well. The atmosphere is a good level of tense, and the misery of all the characters who deserve it, in this case, I feel does kind of work. So yes, I enjoyed Robert Rodriguez's The Misbehavers. It's cool, it's slick, and it's just dripping with Rodriguez's style. And the last thing to mention are the people who contributed greatly to helping build the atmosphere of this story. The cinematography in The Misbehavers was done by Guillermo Navarro, Navarro, who is a pretty skilled cinematographer. He won the Oscar for the cinematography in Pan's Labyrinth. And showing once again that he is practically his own crew entirely. Rodriguez was also the editor for The Misbehavers. El Mariachi Man, he shows what you can do. When Ted answers the phone at the beginning of The Misbehavers, next to the receiver, you can see a pack of Red Apple cigarettes. You get involved with Tarantino, expect to have certain things in your film. And after The Misbehavers, we get a brief in-between segment where Ted comes down after getting stabbed and the room on fire, why the police haven't showed up and put a crime scene around the hotel is beyond me. And Ted calls his boss to tell her he quits. And we cut to his boss's home where she is passed out and her friend answers the phone, Margaret, played by, surprisingly, Marissa Tomei. Very fresh off her Oscar win for My Cousin Vinny. And she and all the women in this room are playing a Rambo 3 video game and smoking pot. And she is very stoned, obviously, and she speaks with a very almost sultry type of voice. And she has short pigtails. It's very unrecognizable. You wouldn't know this was Marissa Tomei at first glance. And Ted, at first, he really wants to tell Betty he's done, but he relays at first to Margaret and talks about the events of the night. And the first thing he talks about is the encounter with the Coven of Witches, and Tomei, playing a stoned-ass retard, goes, "You were fucked by an oven of witches?" And while talking about the witches and how he had sex with one of them, Tomei says that doesn't sound so bad, and then Ted goes, well, admittedly that was the best part of the night. Which is, once again, the movie trying to make it look like what happened wasn't rape, which it technically was, and I'm not going to make a big deal, just in certain movies, double standards come to mind. But anyway, Ted, fed up with this stoner chick, tells her to put Betty on, the boss. And Betty, once again surprising, is played by comedian Kathy Griffin, who had worked with Tarantino on Pulp Fiction. Betty and Ted talk. Ted is fed up, and just as he's about to leave, he sees the phone light blinking for the penthouse suite, which is where a big Hollywood director is staying. And Betty begs him to go up there to this director and give him what he wants because the hotel is really dying. And giving this big-time director a satisfying stay could possibly lead to more famous guests showing up. And Betty pretty much begs Ted, and he agrees, and Ted answers the penthouse saying, "Front desk." And then we get into the final segment of the movie, Quentin Tarantino's segment.